The Panthers have a new head coach, but will the results be the same? Panthers, Rams, week 6. Can they get a win for the interim Steve Wilks? It's another Locked On NFL crossover Thursday here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Rams, the Locked On NFL crossover Thursday with the host of Locked On Panthers, me, Julian, and the host of Locked On Rams, Travis Rodgers. As always, crossover Thursday is presented by our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is so much fun and easy to play. No competing with other players. It's just you versus the projections available. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. It can literally take you less than 60 seconds to enter. It's that easy. We love PrizePicks, and we know that you will too. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. Travis, Panthers, Rams on Sunday. Both teams have kind of struggled. Not kind of. Carolina has a brand new head coach, but the Rams' vaunted offense has not been what we had seen it last season when they went on to win the Super Bowl. What is the biggest story going into this Week 6 matchup at SoFi Stadium?
Yeah, I think that the way that it's changed, Julian, from what we were talking about on Locked On Rams, from the end of the Super Bowl, through the parade, through the draft, through training camp, through the opening part of the season, and really even after they got absolutely dump trucked by Buffalo on the opening night, they're still a pretty good team. They're going to be okay. Buffalo's really good. And now it's changed completely. Now I think for the first time, Rams fans are asking themselves the question that, is this the dark side of going all in the way that they have for the last few years? Is this the bill finally coming due, where your depth is so non-existent, where the second you have a couple of injuries to your frontline guys, there is no plugging the holes? You look at what they're dealing with the offensive line, and for me, that's the biggest story going into this one is, can they find a way to get this blocked up? Because through the first 5 games of the season, they haven't. They're going to have their 6th different starting offensive line in 6 games when they play the Panthers on Sunday. They have the worst rushing attack in the NFL. They've given up 21 sacks through the first 5 games of the season. Matthew Stafford has more interceptions than he does touchdown passes, and they're continuing to lose guys. David Edwards gets put on the IR earlier this week. He's down for 4 more weeks, so it's actually getting worse than getting better.
Yeah, I saw going into this game, I was reading Jordan Rodriguez from The Athletic, who actually used to cover the Carolina Panthers, now covers the Rams, and was good to check in on some of her work. And she was talking about that there might be the 4th starting center in 6 games for the Rams on Sunday. It's that bad?
So the Brian Allen was the starting center, and then Coleman Shelton, who is your starting right guard because Logan Bruss got hurt in camp. Now he's your second center, and then he goes down. Jeremiah Colonna goes in. He's your third center, and a player that they just called up from the practice squad who they acquired from the Baltimore Ravens in the offseason, who really it's not even showing up on depth charts. He could be your starting center come Sunday afternoon at SoFi. It has been an absolute nightmare up front.
Well, here in Carolina, we certainly do not take lightly investing in the offensive line, which I know the Rams did this past offseason, signing 3 guys. Now, one of them, Austin Corbett's back here in Carolina as a starting right guard. But last season in Carolina, 14 different starting offensive line combinations. You can talk about how bad Sam Darnold was and bringing in Cam Newton, PJ Walker. If your O-line's not right, you have no chance, even if you are the defending Super Bowl champs like the Rams. Well, here locally in Charlotte, Carolina, we know that the big story is there's a new head coach in town. As Steve Wilks, who was a secondary coach, now has been elevated to interim. Matt Rule fired after an 11-27 record through 38 games. Things didn't go great here. And I was someone who vouched for Rule to come back for another season, thinking, all right, let's try and find another quarterback in Baker Mayfield. He's arguably been the worst quarterback in the league through 5 weeks, and he's also injured and unlikely to play on Sunday, although Steve Wilks did say on Wednesday that Baker did look like it might be a chance for him. He's still in a walking boot, but he said there might be a chance that he plays. They're prepared for PJ Walker to get the start on Sunday as he received the vast majority of the 1 snaps on Wednesday at practice, where they're actually in pads, a switch up from what they've typically been doing, where they've been in pads on Thursday and not on Wednesday. So they switched it up to get the intensity. But Steve Wilks now here as the interim head coach, he has 12 games to prove himself. He's from Charlotte. went to App State University, had coached here between 2012 and 17 under Ron Rivera, had 1 year out west at Arizona before getting fired, which is a part of the lawsuit that he's now having with the NFL and the Cardinals. So that's the big story here. Panthers have a new head coach, but yesterday's problems are still today's problems. Can they overcome them? That's my question, really.
Yeah, like you said, Julian, I think that, like you're talking about, the top stories for the Panthers are all really good news for the Rams, and it's coming at exactly the right time. They're going through a coaching change. They might be playing, potentially a third-string quarterback in P.J. Walker. And just the turmoil that comes along with the coaching change. Now, sometimes you'll get that bounce that when you make the change, the team kind of rallies a little bit along the way. The familiarity factor for the Rams, like you mentioned, Steve Wilks was with the Cardinals for a year as the head coach. And, that's the one team that the Rams seem to really just thrive against. Even this year, it's by far their best game of the year. So I don't know if there's any familiarity with him and what he does. But it's a big one for the Rams, because if this doesn't work, then the question of what will becomes a real one, because the second half of the schedule for the Rams it's a Super Bowl schedule. When you win the Super Bowl, you get the schedule that Super Bowl champions get. And they've got road games in Tampa. They've got road games in Kansas City, Green Bay, New Orleans. That's all in the second half of the season. So if they're going to make a run back to the playoffs, this is a must-have it for the Rams.
Yeah, and same thing for Carolina. If they're going to bounce back at all, they have the Rams this week, and then they have next week against Tampa at home. It's 3 straight weeks, the 49ers last week, of the final four in the NFC playoffs. And I think the last 3 representatives from the NFC in the Super Bowl. So the Panthers, they've got a tough schedule, and they had 4 of their first 5 games at home. In those games, they went 1-3. So home has not been a good sign for them, but maybe going down the road, getting away from all the chaos of a coaching change might be beneficial to this team. I don't know, though. PJ Walker, he is 2-0 as a starter, if that's even a stat you want to put out there. So it'll be a tough task for them on Sunday, especially with a great defense that the Rams have, and really 2 anemic offenses, Carolina and Los Angeles. Which
I wonder, Julian, that the Matt Rule experiment, was this a classic? Because sometimes it works out. Like Pete Carroll, it works out. Jimmy Johnson, it works out. You take a guy from the college ranks, you put him in, and they thrive. And then there are Steve Spurriers. There are other examples of Greg Schiano, college coaches that come in and faceplant. Was he in the second category? Was this just a bad fit from the jump?
I don't know if it was a bad fit from the jump. That's what everyone's going to say now, considering he's been fired after 38 games. And David Tepper, the owner here in Carolina, talked about it being a 5-year plan when he hired Matt Rule. He didn't even make it 2.5 years into that alleged, supposed 5-year plan. It's somewhat of a bad fit, but also he never got the quarterback position right. Teddy Bridgewater came in here. I was reading earlier today that Charles Robinson from Yahoo said that the owner, David Tepper, was turned off by the amount of money they spent on Teddy Bridgewater, which actually led to him slow playing the deal for Matthew Stafford. So Stafford in part is a Ram because David Tepper wanted more background on his back injury and was not ready to sign off on that because he did not trust Matt Rule because of the first decision to bring in Teddy Bridgewater. That lands it with Sam Darnold, who was the worst starting quarterback in the league up until that point. And we saw it yet again last year, despite the injury. And then so far this season, Baker Mayfield hasn't been great. So yeah, Matt Rule, probably more of a college coach, but certainly the inability to find a quarterback was his demise, in my opinion, here in Carolina more than anything. So we'll see if that will change as far as the energy levels. And we saw a year ago when Sam Darnold went out with an injury and Cam Newton came back for what was a really fun 10 days with that Arizona Cardinals game on the road. The entire energy on that sideline was completely different. So maybe the Carolina Panthers can carry that kind of momentum to Sunday when they face off in LA at SoFi Stadium.
I love the word energy because that's what has been lacking for the Rams all season long. That buzz that they had last year, that little spark, that little thing that makes you excited about your team. It was there for, the entire run last year. Even when they weren't playing well, it's like, yeah, they're okay. They're making some mistakes, but the mistakes felt fixable. This team, the problems they have may not be fixable, and that little extra, that intangible thing just has not been here yet.
No, it hasn't been here either in Carolina. So both teams hoping to see that energy spark on Sunday afternoon at SoFi Stadium, 4:05 West Coast time at 1 o'clock locally here in Charlotte. When we take a quick pause here, Travis can come back. We'll talk about some of these key matchups to look forward to on Sunday as the Panthers and Rams face off in Week 6. It's yet another edition of the Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday. All right, Travis, here's a sports analogy for you. When it comes to burglars, your home is like an end zone, and you need the absolutely strongest defense you can muster. This is why I use and trust SimpliSafe Home Security. At SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. It's cutting-edge technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back, so you always know your home is safe. SimpliSafe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door. HD security cameras for inside and outside your home. Smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real. And even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats for your home. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/lockedonnfl. Save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplysafe.com/lockedonnfl to learn more. That's simplysafe.com/lockedon. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Okay, back here, Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday, sponsored by our friends over at PrizePicks. Julian Council, host of Locked On Panthers. Travis Rodgers, host of Locked On Rams. Travis, we're hoping to see some sort of energy on Sunday. I'm concerned that it's two really good defenses against two really bad offenses. Now, the Panthers are just bad because, well, it doesn't seem like the quarterback position is fixed. The Rams have had injuries and they've had other sort of issues. What are some of the matchups you're looking at from the Rams perspective that could help them win this game on Sunday?
Well, I think there's a couple of things, and not to go over something that we just talked about, Julian, but the offensive line is number one. They have to find a way to get some stuff blocked up. And more specifically, let's, for the sake of the conversation, say that they're better. Then I think you can start to evaluate Matthew Stafford and the matchup that he has against that pretty good Carolina defense, because so far what the Rams have done through the first 5 weeks of the season has been really wildly inconsistent. And that's probably a generous assessment of what it's been, because inconsistent means there's some good and some bad. And there really has been very, very little good at what they've been able to do. For me, I can't figure out if Matthew Stafford is playing well or not. The numbers say that he isn't. The interception rate says that he isn't. All of the advanced metrics are saying no, but I don't care if it's Joe Montana or Tom Brady or anybody else. When you've got a second and a half to make a decision before Von Miller or Micah Parsons or whoever else that they played against this year, Bosa, that are just, they're in your face, you're going to have all sorts of problems. And one of the ways and one of the matchups that I think the Rams can try to engage in is trying to find a way to get Allen Robinson involved. And I'll go back a little bit here, Julian, when the Rams were coming out of their best season, where they had Todd Gurley as an MVP candidate early on in Sean McVay's career. And then they came back for that next year. And Gurley never really got going. It was always this, hey, when's Gurley going to get going? And it just never happened. He never was that guy that we'd seen previously. All Rams fans and people that cover this team were, Allen Robinson's going to kill it. You've got his best quarterback of his life, the best head coach of his life, an offensive scheme that's going to set up really well for him, and a number one wide receiver in Cooper Kupp who's going to draw a ton of attention. This should be an opportunity for him to go absolutely wild. And to say that he's been non-existent, and he can't even say that he's been bad. He has been. I think he's only caught 9 passes so far this season through 5 games. He's under 100 yards. He's only had 1 touchdown. It was early in the Atlanta game, and it really was not it's a touchdown. It matters, but it didn't swing the game in any meaningful way. They have to get him involved. Regardless of who's defending him, you got to find a way to get him involved, because otherwise you're asking Cooper Kupp to catch 15, 16 passes a game, get in the end zone a couple times, and that's just not sustainable.
That's wild to me. You said 9 receptions in 5 games so far. We spent so much time back when he was a Bear saying if he ever had a quarterback that he would be able to show that he's one of the top receivers in the NFL. And we hear a lot of that here in Carolina with DJ Moore, who I'm certain the Rams would probably be interested in if Carolina ends up doing a fire sale and trying to recoup some draft picks. I know for me with Carolina, I'm looking at trying to stop Aaron Donald. You can't stop Aaron Donald, but that's the first guy. When I look at that Rams defense, with the already porous offense the Carolina Panthers have, they've got to find a way. And I saw last week against Dallas, he lined up as a defensive end for one of the plays against the Dallas Cowboys rookie offensive tackle.
Yep.
That concerns me. Ike Ekwonu has come leaps and bounds since week 1 where he struggled against Myles Garrett. Aaron Donald's better than Myles Garrett. He's in that same category of just game wreckers, but there's just not anyone in the league quite like Aaron Donald. So that concerns me if he goes out wide and lines up against Ike Ekwonu, or if he stays inside against a guy like Pat Elflein, who's had a better year as a center, but still he can be a liability for the Carolina Panthers. So stopping Aaron Donald is the first thing on the top of my mind heading to Sunday.
Yeah, they'll move him around a lot. They'll use him in this traditional spot inside, over the center in that A gap right there, but they will line him up on the edge sometimes. You're right, Julian. I still think not only do I think Aaron Donald's the best defensive player in the league right now, I think he's on a very short list of maybe the best defensive player in the history of the NFL. I think he's that good. But when you double him and triple him, he becomes, instead of being Superman, he's, Superman light. He's still really good, but you can deal with it. Somebody other than Aaron Donald has to put some pressure on that quarterback. Last year it was Von Miller. We've seen some other guys, whether it's Michael Brockers and Ndamukong Suh. We've seen it through the cycle of guys that he's played with. Dante Fowler was with the Rams for a couple of seasons. He was able to do it. But so far this season, Leonard Floyd has been the guy that you're hoping has been able to do it, and he hasn't. It just really has not been. It's either Aaron Donald, occasionally Bobby Wagner, or no pressure at all. They're going to have to find a second guy.
That surprised me that the Rams have not been able to get pressure this season. And Carolina has actually kind of been in that same boat. You talk about finding a second guy. So far this season, the Panthers only have 8 sacks. 4 of those come from Brian Burns, who was a Pro Bowler last season. And also on the other side, had Hassan Reddick, who's been fantastic back home with the Philadelphia Eagles, who sit at 5-1, look like the best team in the NFC at this point in time. That has not emerged in Carolina. We knew going to the year that the Panthers need to go out and try and find someone opposite of Brian Burns to help with that pass rush. They're 9th in the NFL so far with pressure rate. They just haven't gotten home. And I look at the Rams offensive line that's been banged up. I know Joe Noteboom and both him and Havenstein, the 2 tackles, have really struggled. I think they've given up 5 sacks and 3 sacks respectively, so 8 total.
If Brian Burns, mind, Julian, those are their only 2 guys that are their projected starters. The guys on the inside of that line, both guards and center, they're 3rd, and in the case of the center, 4th string players. They're not even the backups. They're 3rd and 4th string guys. Your 2 first stringers in Havenstein and Noteboom, like you mentioned, those are the guys that you would like to at least lean on, and they haven't been able to do that either.
And that's going to be a key to victory for Carolina. Brian Burns is going to have a field day, and anyone else who can step up, like a Marquise Haynes, a situational pass rusher, if he can do something possibly. And even with the interior, where it's you're starting it might be the 4th different center, and also like the 3rd different like left or right guard. Just the amount of combinations in the interior of the offensive line. Derek Brown, the first rounder out of Auburn back in 2020, is finally looking like that 7th overall pick. He's shown in the last couple of weeks, if he can be a game wrecker inside. Same thing with Matt Ioannidis, who has a history of being a pretty good interior pass rusher back when he was with Washington. That's how Carolina can find success on Sunday against the Rams.
Yeah, they're I think it really could be a game where if a defensive play, a strip sack, an interception, a scoop and score could be the difference, because I have a hard time envisioning either of these 2 offenses marching up and down the field and putting together, 8, 9, 10, 12 play drives and scoring 27, 30 points. This feels like a game that could be played in the teens. This feels like a game where a turnover, a sack, maybe a field position, trade punts for a few minutes. It's going to come down to one of those weird deals.
It could be ugly, and I can guarantee you one thing. P.J. Walker, while he might be 2-0 as a starter, he's always turned the football over in those games. He had 2 red zone interceptions against Detroit back in 2020, a game where the Panthers defense shut out the Lions. The Panthers defense has stepped up when P.J. Walker has gone out there and started. They had a couple of turnovers last year against the Cardinals. Now, P.J. Walker also threw an interception. So he's probably going to give one to the Rams. It's going to be important, though, for the Panthers defense to go out there and get one of their own, maybe even 2, and set up this offense with the short field if they're going to have any sort of chance at scoring against that Rams unit.
Rams secondary banged up too. Outside of Jalen Ramsey, you're missing Jordan Fuller. You're starting safety. You're missing Taylor Rapp potentially, who's got a rib injury. Troy Hill, the guy they brought over from Cleveland during the season to be their second corner to replace Darius Williams, he's down. It's just that everything that could go wrong for the Rams injury-wise has.
Yeah, and also just update with the Panthers secondary, J.C. Horn. He's dealing with a hip/rib issue. That's what Steve Wilks talked about on Wednesday. He left early in Sunday's game against the 49ers. We'll see what his availability is. Xavier Woods, the starting safety, had an issue with his hamstring. He was back at practice on Wednesday. Jeremy Chen, unfortunately, is on IR for the next 3 weeks at least, so he's not eligible to play. So the Panthers also look banged up in the secondary. Might be something to help out the Rams. Both teams dealing with injuries, so it could be an ugly one on Sunday. And we'll get into it here shortly, Travis, as we'll give our game predictions and our score predictions and look at what this could end up being on Sunday afternoon. But before that, let's talk about our friends over at PrizePicks, who, of course, every Thursday are a sponsor for our Locked On NFL crossover Thursday episodes. So how does PrizePicks work? You pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you can watch, including the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, PGA Tour, college football, even NASCAR, tennis, cricket, if you're into that.
Who isn't?
Exactly. Who doesn't love cricket? It's what the second most popular sport in the world. So many people watch cricket. So check out PrizePicks for that. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, safe, and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and up north to our friends in Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. So what that means is if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100 when you download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com. Okay, so let's look at this matchup. We looked at the matchups. We talked about the storylines. Let's give our predictions. I'm not much of a guy who likes to give scoreline predictions, but I will tell you who I think is going to win or lose this game on Sunday as the Panthers come at 1-4. The Rams, I would say, a disappointing 2-3 for the defending Super Bowl champs, and the 49ers might be I mean, they only have a 1-game lead, but they certainly look like maybe the class of the NFC West at this point in time. Heading into Sunday, how are you feeling? Is this the bounce back game for the Rams before they get to their bye week, or do they suffer a shocking loss to the Panthers team with the interim head coach?
I think, and I am really reluctant to say things like this, Julian, because I think that it's cliche and it's almost always hyperbole, but I believe it's true in this case. I think the Rams season turns on Sunday. I think that if depending on the result of the game, you're going to get one of 3 things. If the Rams win, here's the story they can tell themselves. We played like you know what for 6 weeks, but we're 3-3. We're still in it. We're only a game behind the 49ers, and maybe if San Francisco loses this weekend and you're tied. That it went as badly as you can. The Rams have their bye week next week. We got to bye to get as healthy as we're going to get, and then we can kind of hit the gas going in the second half and let the chips fall where they may. That's the best case scenario. Win the game, whether it's 10-9, whether it's 35-32. I don't think it matters. Win the game. You can tell yourself that story. The other 2 stories, the worst case scenario is you lose to a 1-4 team that's got a 3rd-string quarterback that just fired their coach, that's going nowhere. Your season's up in smoke. It is what it is. And Super Bowl hangover, call it what you want. There is no spinning 2-4 with a loss to Carolina at home under these circumstances. The other one that's kind of splitting it there is you win the game, but it doesn't look very good. You go out there and maybe, like we were talking about a minute ago, maybe you get a late turnover, and it's just that Carolina is a little bit worse than the Rams as opposed to the Rams playing well. You don't get much healthier in the break. You come out of the bye week next week, and San Francisco stomps you for the 8th time in a row in the regular season, and then we're right back to what we were talking about. But if they can win, if they can look halfway decent, if they can get a little healthier in the bye week after that, I think that maybe – I'm a huge believer in Sean McVay. I think he's a wonderful head coach. I think he really is a unicorn. I think he's one of these few guys that can make a big difference. He showed up after Jeff Fisher and instantly changed the culture of that organization. This was a boring, flat, uninteresting, uninspired group of teammates, and he changed it like that. They've been to the Super Bowl twice in 5 years. They've had no losing records. I believe in him. But you can only do so much with 3 third-string offensive linemen. There's only so much you can scheme around. They have to win on Sunday. If they do, the season keeps going. If they don't, it's real close to calling it a wrap.
It almost feels like on Sunday, whose backups perform better will dictate who wins the game, and especially for Carolina. And you talk about PJ Walker. He's not really a third-string quarterback, Travis. Going into training camp, they had Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and the rookie out of Ole Miss, Matt Corral. Matt Corral broke his foot. Like PJ Walker was going to be the odd man out when he entered camp. And he actually was asked about that on Wednesday. And he said, I did think about that for a week, how I probably wasn't going to be here. And you have to move past that. He said, I was going to look forward to my reps and opportunities in the preseason and show people that, hey, I think I can play. I know I can play. So he actually was the 4th-string guy. But once Matt Corral went out in the second game of the preseason with a Lisfranc injury that ended his rookie year before he even got started, then Darnold went out with a high ankle sprain, which he's been out for 7 weeks now in a preseason finale against Buffalo. It was just down to Baker and PJ. And here in week 6, It's now the PJ Walker show, which is insane for Carolina to be in this situation and really further highlights just how bad the quarterback situation is here in Carolina. But what we've known in the past is PJ Walker's played well. And when he's played well enough to win. And the defense has helped lift him up in those situations against Detroit in 2020 and last year against Arizona. So I do expect the Panthers defense to come out flying, to be able to make some plays and to give PJ Walker an opportunity. The problem is, like I said earlier, yesterday's problems are still today's problems. I look at this Panthers roster in totality. Special teams is much better than what it was a year ago. Now they have Johnny Hekker, which might be a revenge game for him if there could be a punter revenge game after they gave up on him in LA. I'm sure he'll be fired up. Special teams is much better. After one of the worst units in the NFL a year ago, the offensive line is fixed. They have weapons at wide receiver. The defense is one of the best units, but the quarterback just has not been good enough. So it's hard for me to feel like the Panthers can go out here and win this game. I would not be surprised if they do. If they carry over that momentum as far as, okay, bunker mentality, I don't know if you can call it momentum, but bunker mentality, let's block out the noise, and that energy can come for 1 week. Can they sustain it for the other 11 games after that? I doubt it, but maybe we see that on Sunday afternoon against the Rams. I don't think they'll win this game, but I think it will be a low-scoring, close loss for the Panthers, probably something in the range of 13-17.
Yeah, I think if anybody gets to 20, they're in really good shape. I think 17 may be enough along the way. And you said something, Julian, that I forgot to mention that, another maybe thing that Carolina could take advantage of. The Rams have had 2 punts blocked in the first 5 games of the season. And right up the middle, too. These are not guys coming off the edge, not guys that are just getting, the tip of their finger on it. Guys that are basically taking it off of Riley Dixon's foot. They're just an absolute mad scramble back to the punter. So, it could be one of those, a special teams gaff, a snafu, a block punt, a block kick, and that could change this game too.
Yeah, the Panthers going to need every single break they can get, and the Rams might need it as well if they want to move the football on Sunday. Could possibly be an ugly one, but an important one for the Rams to try and get back on track and for the Panthers to try to build some sort of momentum. Christian McCaffrey's still healthy. Trying to run the ball against Los Angeles is probably their best path to trying to win and move the ball on Sunday against the Rams. Week 6, Panthers at the Rams, 4 o'clock out west, 1 o'clock here locally in Charlotte. Again, it's been a Locked On NFL crossover Thursday edition, sponsored by our friends over at PrizePicks. I'm Julian Council. Follow me on Twitter at Julian Council. He's Travis Rodgers, the host of Locked On Rams. Follow him on Twitter at Travis Rodgers, and also check him out in the morning on ESPN 710 LA. To give you all the good news going on with the Rams and, of course, the Dodgers.
Yeah, go Dodgers. We got a big one coming up against the Padres again, and hopefully they'll keep going. We need to have something to keep us interested in once football season is over.
Well, it's a great sports town. You got the Lakers coming up. USC football is good. UCLA is also undefeated. We can't say that here in Charlotte. LaMelo Ball is out for at least 2 weeks. So we're going through it right now with the Panthers and the Hornets, whose season starts next Wednesday on October 19th. But it's been fun talking to you, Travis. Again, to my listeners, make sure to follow me on Twitter at Julian Council. We got the weekly Friday mailbag, either at me or DM me. And everyone else who checks out Locked On Rams, continue to check out Travis Rodgers wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And you can check us both out on YouTube. Just be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. In the meantime, take care, be safe, and we'll talk to you guys on Friday.